And so with that, I want to just officially go ahead, and David, I just want to welcome you to the Soul Circle group. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is beyond an honor to have you here, and I get to introduce you to everyone. And just for those of you that actually got to meet David when we went to the Mount Shasta conference, many of you already have gotten to experience a lot of his incredible information that he has shared with us. But this evening, we get to experience him in a whole new dynamic, really getting to take a moment to experience a lot of the brand new information, the physics, the mathematics, and even our understanding of the solar codes that we get to work with. He's been bringing a lot of powerful information through, just through his connection from his experiences, but a lot of it has been through upgrades of him now having a whole new expanded way of looking through mathematics. So just to welcome David. David is an astrophysics alchemist, and he had an incredible experience in 2017. I'm going to let him get to explain all of that to you. But through his experience, he has been able to fully and completely bring to all of us a whole gift of wisdom. So now, I just want to invite you to the circle, David. I'm actually going to let you tell a bunch of the information, because you just have a much better way of sharing of all of it, because I am learning every time I speak with you first. So I just want to introduce you. Welcome. Oh, I'm going to have you just unmute here. Let's see.
Mute. How's that?
There we go. Perfect.
Great. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's happy, healthy, and well.
They're all overjoyed.
Great. Well, we're all foraging.
We've been so excited to have you this evening, and we just wanted to have the opportunity to get to expand. I did share that last newsletter that you shared out about that information that you were bringing through. And I wanted to just kind of let you take the floor with being able to share with us some of the powerful energy that you're getting downloaded with, and how we can work with that.
Okay. That's a big request, and I'm going to try and keep it as understandable as possible. I've always been in touch with Mother Earth. I've always loved animals, and my mom introduced me to animals at day one, and she ended up raising lions and tigers for 35 years at the Shambhala Preserve in Acton, California, with the actress Tippi Hedren. So I grew up with big cats, and when I wasn't raising big cats with Tippi and my mom, I was up hiking in the mountains collecting crystals and geodes when I was 13, 14, 15. And I had a really sort of lucky life because of the life I was born into. And I know a lot of us believe that we get to choose who our parents are going to be. And I think I understand that that's actually really true. When I had a past life regression done for me by my associate and dear friend Kim Jim from the Taurus system, he took me back to two past lives and explained why I was allowed to have this life, because there's some nurturing and some guidance that we receive before we're reborn. And I believe that comes from beings who love us and from guardian angels. And the guardian angels could be members of a family that we had passed on from, or that they had left us but decided to stay in the family loop. There's a whole hierarchy of reasoning that goes behind that, and I don't want to cover too much about that. But I do understand the idea about picking the family that we're born into. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the trip to Taurus, but I will say that in 2017, and I've sent you some photos which you can share in a little bit, my son and I started seeing ships, and we concentrated on trying to contact them for 6 or 7 months straight. After we saw our first unmistakable giant spherical orb, and it stopped our car, and then we got out and looked at it, and it zipped straight up into outer space and was joining the stars within seconds. My son and I researched as much as we could off of, documentaries, the internet and television. We found that 90% of that was rubbish. And so we decided to produce a mantra and sit on my balcony and overlooking the ocean. And we concentrated on a single area of outer space. And we did this every night, religiously, every night, 7 days a week for about 7 months, until a whole host or myriad of ships could hear our minds, and they stopped and would come and communicate with us. And we would look for deep stellar craft that would move like in between stars and then stop when we looked at it, and then fly straight into Earth's atmosphere from the point we were looking at. We know the difference between airplanes and then very high stratospheric jetliners. And it's nothing like that. Everybody's seen some ships. We all know who they are, where they're from, and we have our contacts. This isn't about trying to convince anybody. After many months of communicating back and forth psychically, it was decided that I was ready to go. And they came down and collected me. And that was a beautiful experience. They took me away for 4 hours from Earth, but it was a 4-day journey. And it has something to do with time displacement and the nature of traveling deep space very, very quickly. They told me basically that they needed to use me as an ambassador. And I found out that there's a huge program, a wonderful system of events that's been put into place over the last 25 years, maybe 35 years. And we all know that beyond Earth sentience have been guiding mankind for many thousands of years, and they will continue to do so. But that's based on our own ability to love ourselves and love our planet, and to love them and accept them. When you're ready to meet when they'll come and see you. And I know there are other human beings that have physical contact. So over a period of 6 years, I've had a very amazing experience of continued physical contact, to the point where they come into my home and they come into my pie shop. I own a little bakery in Hermosa Beach. They come into my garden and they wake me up if I'm in bed, and they sit on the edge of the bed and they talk to me. Or they come into my house and then I follow them into my study. I'm in my study now. They're fascinated by human beings and different types of human being. So I've sent Rebecca some photographs, and they're real photographs, and they're pictures of the inside of their ships, the pictures of the entities themselves. When it was explained to me what my role was going to be, I obviously turned around and looked at them and I said, well, this is all well and good, but I'm going to need some proof. And so they've given it to me. They've given it to me in the form of hundreds of photographs that I've taken. And I've sent Rebecca the JPEG reverse side of the photo so you can see it's not a screenshot. My experience continued into school, and I ended up going back to university and studying astrophysics. I've graduated with a MSc in astrophys, and I did all right. I'm 57 years old, and for me to go back to university and pick up another 6-year degree was really something else, because I had my business and everything else.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I went back to school was to understand the languages that they were speaking to me in, because I knew that they were higher physics or quantum physics. I knew it had a lot to do with frequencies and vibrations and wavelengths. And it also has an awful lot to do with neurology. And if you have a healthy human brain and a healthy spinal cord and neural synapses, and you don't have any developmental issues, you're not an alcohol abuser or a drug abuser, then you're pretty clearly on the path to being able to understand all of the messages that they send to us. And they certainly do speak to us psychically. Sometimes they speak to us and we actually hear their voice in our mind. And when that started happening, I was delighted, because I started hearing different voices in different pitches and ranges. And I have to tell you, though, when I was returned I was taken to a terraform planet. When I was returned, I went to go see 2 psychiatrists, because in the first 2 months of being returned, there was no there was no guidance that I was given other than to relax and that everything would eventually make sense to me, is basically what they said. And that's in a nutshell. So I went to go see a couple of shrinks, and one of them was a very successful, very old psychiatrist. She's the main psychiatrist for the Northern California group of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I went to go see him, and he sat for 9 hours. And I told him the entire story from when they picked me up and scrubbed me down, took me to the beach, put me in their ship, took me straight out to Taurus and returned me. It was 9 hours to describe every detail. And so at the end of the conversation, I had taken some tests. You know, it wasn't Rorschach tests. He'd given me some interesting geometry tests. And I took a 500 question multiple choice literary test to test my critical thinking skills and my logic. He told me that he had heard the same thing from at least 20 of his officers in the FBI, and that everything was fine, and that there was nothing wrong with me, and that I was very fortunate to have this experience and not to worry about it, and that indeed things would start to make sense as time went by. After hearing that, I was lucky enough to meet Barbara Lamb, and Barbara Lamb is this funny Kim Jim, my contact from Taurus, who took me on the entire journey and explains everything to me. He said that when I was returned to Earth, that all of my friends would change and that they would be bringing people into my life to help me digest what happened. Emotionally, yes. Intellectually, yes. And as far as my being able to keep my feet on the ground and stay grounded and be a normal dad and run a business and everything else that I have to do as a human being on Terra, it's been a real challenge. And I think I've surmounted it because none of it was bad. There was nothing that was ever bad. Everything was always filled with dignity and love. And there was a lot of deep interpersonal and physical communication that occurred. When I was removed from my home, and I'll just talk about it really quickly. I took my dog out to go pee at 10 o'clock, and she's a big Japanese Akita. Immediately after she went pee, she was standing on the grass outside my home. She curled up at my feet and passed out. All of the lights in my neighborhood for blocks around, maybe 10, 15, 20 city blocks, went dead out, black. Everything was dark. I looked up, and there was a ring of lights facing straight down. And it was probably 2 miles above my head, and it was the size of 3 or 4 aircraft carriers. And I knew that since my son and I had been communicating with him for almost a whole year prior to this event, that I knew my time was up and that something big was about to happen. So in the process of learning to communicate with them, while my son and I were on the balcony the year prior, we realized that they can read your mind from no matter the distance. They could be 35, 45, or 1,000 or 5,000 miles away. They could still read your mind. And so when I saw their ships, I would put my hand on my phone and say, may I take your picture? And we'd always receive some sort of verification for that. It would be, yes, David. Or there would be like 2 flashing lights, and then all the lights on the ship would go out, and then they'd slowly come back on. And that was like a yes. Yeah. And so I was able to take some 500 or 600 photographs over the last 4 years of really beautiful ships, really close up to my home above my house. And when this big ship came down, I was already used to sort of psychically communicating with them. And I asked the ship to rotate so that I could see the entirety of its periphery. And I was wondering, in the back of my mind, I was wondering what sort of propulsion system it had. I'd always been a Star Trek fan. You know, I'm a kid from the 60s. So I got to look at its propulsion system. And as soon as I had hit about 22, 23 photographs, the ship vibrated. And if you can think of a disc that's a half a mile in diameter vibrating a mile above you and then going straight up into space and enjoying the stars within a second, it was going way, way out to outer space. And I could hear the sound of the air collapse back in place when the ship departed. Well, at 11 o'clock, I was a little stunned because I'd never seen a ship this big. My son and my then girlfriend were watching Sleepy Hollow upstairs in my living room. I went out on my balcony, and quite honestly, I was a little shaken. And I had quit smoking, and I had a cigarette, and I had a cup of chamomile tea.
Love that.
And when I came into the front room, I told my girlfriend, I said, "Sweetie, don't lock the sliding glass door tonight." And I put my hand on my son's shoulder and I said, "Sweetheart, if four little beings come in the house later, don't be alarmed." I have no idea other than they told me to say that. And I just sort of glided off to the bedroom, disrobed, and passed right out. 2 hours later, now you have pictures of Toth, the little one in my bakery, looking across the bakery table. 2 hours later, there was four of them in my bedroom. Toth, number one and number two, and they were little 3.5 foot tall blue grays. They were sort of a pale blue. And then a taller one, and I call him Bob. And I don't know why, but maybe because I didn't really like that name, but he's called Bob, and he had a tunic, and he was the only one with a symbol on. He had a starburst, and he didn't say anything the whole time. But Toth, and not Thoth, okay? Don't get him confused with the Egyptian god. It's Toth, and it's spelled T-O-T-H, but it's T-O-E-T-H is the way it's pronounced. All right, so I'm laying on the edge of my bed, and I'm passed out, and I feel this cool, smooth thing on my forehead, like a melon pressing against my head. And I opened my eyes, and there was these two huge blue eyes right there, and they went blink. And I heard him say, "David, head warm, feel nice." And I was like, "What?" And he pulled his head back and said, "Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm Toth." And so, but okay, so here's what he sounds like. All right, so listen carefully.
Okay. All right.
"Everything fine. Everything fine. I'm Toth. Everything fine." Just like that. All right, so they're scrubbing me down with this thing that smells like seaweed, right? Like iodine or something. It's this scratchy green towel. They're scrubbing me down with it. One of them's holding my hand. Toth is telling the other two to be gentle with me. And I sleep in the buff anyway, so they put me into like a hospital smock. And it only comes down far enough to cover my bits. But then they must have knocked me out because I don't remember how I got out of the house.
Yeah.
But within a second, I remember standing on a blue glowing pad with Toth holding my left hand and number one holding my right hand. And we were floating across the sand down in Manhattan Beach on like 26th Street, 28th Street. Once again, everything was pitch black. All the lights were out. There was no flights out of LAX. The ocean was pitch black. And this is like after midnight. There's a blue tent that sort of looks like a trapezoid with wavy fabric that was like gossamer, only it was like gelatine plasma, and it waved very slowly, and it gave off this light pulsating pale electric blue. And as they're gliding me up to the tent over the sand, they're downloading hundreds of pieces of information about etiquette, my behavior, who I'm going to meet, what I'm supposed to do. And I was like, I could just only feel love. I was just totally bowled over with this real heavy blanket of love. And I felt so comfortable and so wonderful and sweet and just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 4 years old and this is my first butterfly. The whole thing was just so wonderful. And so he's going, "Don't show your teeth, David. Smile, but don't show your teeth." And then the other ones all bow when you meet the council. And then he's going, Jim loves you. He can't wait to meet you. He's your friend. He's your friend." And so we get to the door of this tent and it separates it's a V, and it separates like opening scissors.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in and I'm no longer on this little floaty blue pad. I'm walking on some sort of plasma that's on the sand. And I'm starting to feel pins and needles, and I go down this blue hallway, and this tent is enormous, but from the outside it was really tiny. And I got over and I turned left into a brighter blue room, and there was Jim. He's this fabulous, beautiful 4-foot tall, bright blue being with big blue-green eyes, an elongated skull, kind of like a Paracas skull, sitting on a bright white rectangular settee. And there's a white light panel behind him. And he's patting the settee going, David, sit with me. There's a lot of things we need to talk about. I'd first like to discuss neurochemistry and the chemicals that are involved with human emotional values.
Wow.
And boom, we sat down. And so he held my hand, and his fingers were so long, they went around my wrist twice. And he looked right into my eyes and he said, David, I care very much about you. And we realize that there's something wrong. And we're very sorry because we think it's our fault. He says, we've been working with your family for a long time, you especially. He said, we've been working with you since your last 2 lives. You've only had 3 lives on this planet. This is number 3. He said, you were a cop in Brooklyn, in the Bronx in the 1930s, and you were shot in the head. And he took me back. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there in the pissing rain in front of a brownstone, and I open the door and I'm wearing a 1930s cop's dark blue wool jacket. And there's a federal agent inside the house, and he hands me a Ziploc bag with these tiny little dead humans in it. And they're all white and they're all bald and naked, and they're about an inch tall. There's about 40 of them. And the guy with the fedora goes, yep, we found another location. And he hands me the bag. And then I take the bag, close the door, and turn around, and I sort of shudder to the rain. And then I'm pulled out of that life. And then he took me to World War II. And apparently I was a wing gunner on a B-23 in the Pacific campaign, and I got a magnesium round right through the cranium. And he said, everybody really cared about you. You were well liked, and that was it. And you weren't supposed to go. And that was something we couldn't control because it was a war.
Yeah.
And he says, we have a hard time controlling events during wars. And he says, because everybody's so concentrated on it, we can't really break through. That's why it's important to get people's attention before war breaks out. I mean, have you ever tried to get your husband's attention during the Super Bowl? Right? And so it's like, it's the same thing when the humans get together. Once you're focused, that ultimate focus energy really controls the situation. So he said that I'd suffered greatly in my last 2 lives, and so that I was given this life. But then he realized that I realized that something was going on, because I was closing my eyes, and all of a sudden I'd be projected into the stars, or I'd be on a big ship floating across the planet, looking over the railing of a giant white boat up in space. And, you know, he said, we know that you were feeling unwell because of this. And he says, for some reason, your brain is putting your astral body and your physical 3rd dimensional body together at the same time, and this isn't good. And he says, you're having a schism in between what's really going on with our program and what you think is going on with yours. And he goes, if you'll allow me. And he put his hand on the back of my head. And he said, take a deep breath. And he closed his eyes. And all of a sudden, I had uncontrollable tears. And it was just pouring like a waterfall. And what he had done is, in the very moment of touching the back of my head and the nape of my neck, he had not only downloaded to me all of the information about how humans are supposed to be treated when they're born. He said that we're all born perfect, and that all babies are supposed to go into, like, you know, the 8-year rumpus room with baby animals and flowers and crystals and artwork supplies, and that's it. And he says, instead, humans lock them in a crib and put them in another room while mom and dad scream at each other about not having enough money for school. Right?
Yeah.
So he says the baby is a sponge. And he says your species is wrecking your childhood from the get-go. And so he took all of the disconnected, disassociated guilt, fear, negativity, everything that was handed to me by my family and by the world I was dragged into, took it all away from me. And I felt reborn. Like, I felt brand new and like wide-eyed and innocent and ready to go. And he said, are you ready? And I started crying again because I thought he was going to take me home. And he goes, and he pointed up at the ceiling. And so I started crying again because I thought to him, I said, I'm going to go on your ship.
Yeah.
And he nodded yes. And so that was really just it. And we walked outside of the tent. He said, hold on to my hand very tightly. And of course, he wasn't going to let go of me. And this really powerful tingling came up on the back of my neck and my shoulders, and we went straight up into the bottom of this huge craft. And it was probably 6 or 7 miles above the earth. And I could see Manhattan Beach in Southern California and California in the United States shrinking below us as we were pulled straight up. And that's when it got really amazing. I mean, that was amazing. But then he introduced me to the deckhands, how the ship works. And this thing is massive. There's 1,500 different species from all over the galaxy on it. We're all going to a terraformed planet called Barokali, where there's going to be an intergalactic meeting of scientists and concerned galactic council members about the solution for Earth. Because Kim Jim said we can't separate the wheat from the chaff. He said we can't just do another flood. He said that worked 6,000 years ago. He says we can't do that now.
Yeah.
And he said we're going to empower the human race to allow yourselves to wake up. And there's going to be not 1 or 2, but 3 or 4 genetic switches or triggers that are all going to fire off in the next 5 to 10 years. And you're going to be there to help it happen. And so he said goodbye. And then he said, I'm leaving you with Erom. She will walk you across the deck. And we talked about the controllers with the sparkly dresses, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she said, and he said, then she will take you to Weimer. And Weimer was my deck guide who put me in my special chair and prepared me for my trip to Brokali in the Aldebaran system in Taurus Cloud.
Oh, and it's so incredible. There's so many things that come up. I mean, one of the things that really, I kind of almost want to just like explore this, but also it just ties in. One, the plasma you talk about is something that seems incredibly significant, because even how you're talking about they were pulling you across the beach, but you weren't even touching it, you were floating across. And I also almost want to highlight the energy of their blue energy, the blue ray that they emanate, because I know a lot of us, especially here in this group, we really resonate with the blue ray, the blue flame, that blue lineage energy. And you've even mentioned that holding that frequency of plasma energy is very high consciousness, is a very incredible, loving energy that you can feel emanating from these beings.
I haven't stopped wearing blue for the last 6 years since it happened. I wear bright blue every day.
I love that. I love that. And the thing that really gets me just so jazzed, because this is just where I feel such a like, oh my gosh, how do you do this? Is I just almost want to ask them, how did you do that? How did you put your hands on the back of the head and just help dump all of that karma, all of that blame, that shame, that guilt, all that family debt that we hold that doesn't even belong to us? Because I really feel that's one of the major keys in this lifetime, is for us to find that way to unlock that, to drop it away in the way you described, that it was almost like childlike lightness, like joy, like this sense of like freedom, not having
Right.
all that burden on you anymore.
Right. You've gone really blurry. Can you see me okay?
Oh yeah, that's I wiggle too much.
Oh, there you go. It's good. So I thought you were phasing out. No, just kidding.
Might be.
So one of the things, one of the many things, I mean, I was telling you in private while we were becoming friends after meeting at Shasta that they use us. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, and it's usually always very good because there's an exchange. They never take something from humans without returning something better, right? They make something better for you. They convinced me 100% that thoughts are things. And they helped me understand the nature and the power of the human mind. Kim Jim explained to me that our minds are more powerful than any other form of energy in the universe. If we would only believe in ourselves and believe in that. He said to be very careful about the words that we choose, because the words empower us. Words have a sonic rhythm. They have a sonorance. They have a cadence, and that cadence energy transfers to frequency. And so certain words carry certain frequencies based on their sonogram cadence. And so if you say words like hate, then you attract that thing. If you use words like forgiveness and love, then you produce and attract that. And he said to be very, very careful about every word that I use and think. And it's taken me some time to be able to program my mind in order to generate and manifest the reality around me based on my thoughts. And I think that's probably why we've become friends, and why, I was able to create a beautiful bakery with a gorgeous Zen garden at the beach with no money. And it's because I believe that I can do these things, and I believe that they're already in existence for me to step into. And he showed me some of the keys, and the key is to really be very careful about the words that you use when you're communicating an idea to another human, because our words, because of their assemblage and because of their frequency, can actually harm another human by speaking the wrong communication, even if you're trying to say the right thing. Sometimes some of the words that are used in that sentence can cause damage or impact our subconscious mind to cause a repetition value. Like, as a mathematician, I run 2 or 3 algorithms concurrently because I'm working on some big mathematics things that have to do with the construction of the universe and things like that. And
Cool things.
I know that when I am really centered, that the words that I use always make people feel better, because I choose to only use words to empower the individual to believe in their soul and to believe in the tiny spark, because that tiny spark could be a raging fire. As soon as you open the porthole to look at it, you let the heat out.
Yeah.
And boy, human beings are amazing. Kim Jim told me that, everybody knows Baalbek in Lebanon, and it has these 3 major sarsens, these 3 massive stones that this temple is built on. And the stones are so heavy, they're like 80,000 tons each. There's no crane in the world big enough to lift them. But Kim Jim explained to me that many years ago, human beings used to be able to gather in groups and hold hands and hum. And he said the certain frequency from humming would cause to levitate and move, and then we could drop them and put them into place using the power of our mind. But all the systems that have been put into place around us are forcing us to be distracted so that we forget about that special skill that we all have.
Yeah. And this
Do
is
you want to show a picture of Kim Jim's ship?
I do. And also I wanted to just kind of, while we're on this topic, you mentioned about that part of your purpose. And I really feel that, yes, you did, do that mantra and ask to communicate.
This is where the government gets involved and freezes you.
Oh, did I freeze? Shelley, am I frozen?
There you are.
Okay. You guys can type in the chat if I'm freezing up or anything. It looks like I have internet, but yeah, they do mess with us a bit here when we gather and do high vibrations. But you were kind of like, my impression intuitively when I really tap in is, it's like you were saying you'd had multiple lifetimes, I really feel that you connected with them because they are your family. This is your star family. This is, who you are on a greater level, and that you have chosen to come here to be in this earth mission, if you will, through these lifetimes. So I don't feel it's an accident why you felt inspired to sit on your deck every night for almost a year doing a mantra, whereas most other people wouldn't have thought of that, because that was just something innately within you to really activate what I felt was already predestined, really, for you to connect with them. And as that happened, you mentioned that part of this is the purpose for you to help. You were saying that there are genetic switches that you are helping us interpret, not only the language of physics, the language of mathematics, which most of us are scared of. I think it's interesting that they've actually gotten us to be afraid of math and mathematics, when really it's one of the sacred languages of the universe.
Sure.
And so I find that these genetic switches, have you do you feel that that is similar with the learning kind of the higher language or the multidimensional language of these symbols that you're working with? Does that question
Great.
make sense?
Yeah, that's a no. That's clear as a bell. I got that. What happens, and I'm going to draw your attention away for a moment.
Okay.
There's something about visual aids that awaken certain things in human beings. When you look at a picture of something, it makes you feel a certain way, like crop circles. Crop circles are probably the best example I can give you about sacred geometry awakening ancient memories. Okay. So when I was shown this mathematics language that exists already within a known mathematics language, it was to help me awaken that deeper understanding about the future and the past, and how our consciousness has been around forever, and how we are part of a very important consciousness that will rejoin with Source. That our experience in this dimension is especially important because our species is able to understand and comprehend the emotional value, which is also a mathematic value, carry that signal or frequency within our souls when we pass from this life to the next. And that information is something that we are uniquely able to do that other species cannot do. And that's one of the reasons human beings are so important, is because we bring a harmonic resonance memory with us in the form of a mathematic value. And it can be shared mathematically with higher species through either flashes of light or showing them symbols, which will awaken ancient chemical memories within their minds.
So when we really talk, people talk about in the higher consciousness connections, say working with Kim Jim and so on and so forth, that communication was telepathic. But a lot of that higher language is telepathy of symbols, isn't it?
It is. It is. And when I was introduced, well, when I met El, and El is an entirely different being. El comes from Andromeda, and he bailed me out in my midterms. He showed up in my house, and he manipulated some of my notes and some of my figures, and showed me what the correct answers were. And then he sort of told me not to stress out so much. And the picture of, I don't know if you noticed this or not, Becca, but the picture of all those lenses, there's actually 2 or 3 of them that are hovering above the desk with nothing holding on to them. And if you look at that picture again, you'll see that 2 of the big lenses are actually floating. And now the photograph of El that I took, he kind of looks like a wrinkled tobacco leaf, but I drew a line around him. He's got his finger and he's pointing it down at the desk. But what he's doing is he's manipulating these crystals and these lenses, and they're moving around in front of me in order to get the right function to reveal itself to me. He opened up whole pathways of my mind and then showed me the linearized physics nomenclature system that the Andromedeans use to communicate higher mathematic values and whole quanta of messages with mathematic symbols. You see, they can impart, they don't have emotions the way we do. They have memories of emotions, and they're stored chemically, right? But we feel things and they miss feeling those things. When they touch us and when they hold our hand, there's an exchange of DNA material through the sweat of your palms, and you enlighten them to what it was like to be a pre-ancestor before they traveled the stars, and you help them find Source by doing that. So there's an exchange. They put part of themselves into you just by touching you, and that rearranges your chromosomes and your DNA just through your sweat. And you pick up attributes that they have, and there's always an exchange. And they love us very much, but they also love the fact that we help them remember what it was like to feel love.
Wow. It's kind of like
Right?
we're a living library, but they're also,
Correct.
like you're saying, exchanging
That's a
energy.
great way to say it. You're like an enzyme library. You're like an ark. And in fact, one of the ships that I've heard about from them that I've never been on or seen is actually got millions and millions of these little, like, it's like a pegboard, and they're full of enzymatic responses, and they can touch the end of the thing. It's like a roll-on deodorant, and they could touch the end of it and receive a whole chemical download and a whole history lesson just by touching an enzyme or an amino acid that's in this huge wall. All right, and there's thousands of them. Well, it's still not the same. You see, when they evolve past their need to blow themselves up or to turn animals into handbags and all the other horrible shit that occurs, when they evolved past that point, they all became interested in research and science. They wanted to go to other planets to look at, 40,000-foot crystals and, geodes that you could walk around inside of. It's just, they just love science. They love beautiful things. There's very few species that are interested in programs of attrition and greed, and they're on their way out, right? They're on their way out. I'm not even going to mention who they are, but it's just so backwards to even talk about them. So since all of those thousands of years of time spent in outer space, they've changed themselves, obviously, physically. Their bones have a different density, their crystal and metallic structure. Their blood is different. Their craniums are very thin, but their heads are larger because their brains are larger and they're smarter than we are. So they still evolve, but they evolve differently because they're traveling in zero gravity, and they have ships that they're interdimensional and go on for thousands of generations. Right? There's some real interesting stuff about traveling the speed of light. You can travel the speed of light, however, there's certain things that go wrong when you do. But if you travel very, very quickly in intergenerational craft like arcs, then you can transfer your knowledge to your offspring so that you can travel from Antares all the way to the other side of our galaxy over a period of 10,000 years, because the ships are super massive. They're like the size of California.
Does their genetics, from your understanding, does it acclimate to the environment of the arc that they're on? Because I know that's part of the difference within their physiology.
That's a great question. I've been shown a lot of technology, Becca, and I hope you get a show. I hope you show some of the pictures of the inside of the
I'm gonna click those on. If you want, I can go ahead and share them while you.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and put them on, and we'll talk about that. Now, there's some really interesting relationships that they have with their ships.
Oh, hold on.
They have the kind of ships that are almost living, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And when they touch the ship in the control room, when they put their fingers or their hands down on the control pad, they join the ship. There's a symbiotic, intellectual, non-emotional relationship where they understand one another. Okay, that's a great one. Okay, everybody, that's Kim Jim's ship. And I stored it on iCloud almost 7 years ago. And I'm so glad I did, because shortly after all of my adventures, that phone went missing. And I'm so glad I stored this. That is the backside of an enormous half-mile diameter ship. And you can see on the left and right ends, those are the propulsion mechanisms. And then there's a little light on the very top. That ship is about the size of 4 aircraft carrier.
Wow. Wow.
And I took that there. That's it vibrating when it's about to take straight off and zip up in outer space. It started vibrating. And that's why the lights are fuzzy.
That is just so wild.
And now that's what it looked like when it came straight down on top of me. And those are the porthole lights. And there's about 1,000 or more characters in that ship, and probably about 500 sitting in their chairs looking through those portholes going, oh, we're going to pick this guy up too, huh?
Well, and it's really significant too, because you were saying the lights went black everywhere while it was showing up, and you can see that in the photos.
Okay, so this is the spherical craft. This is the gateway craft. And it carries 2 different gateways inside of it. It's a ship that's kind of like an intergalactic, and here it is flying. It came straight out of the western horizon above the ocean and straight up into the air. It looked like it came from China or Hawaii, and it's flying over my my shop, over my bakery in California, and it flew right above there it is, flying into position.
Wow.
That's the big round ship flying into position, and it's going to park right above my chili and mesquite tree, and there it is.
Look at that.
This is what I call the Life Star, and it's the size of probably, what would be a good description size for that thing? It's about the size of a shopping mall turned into a sphere.
Mhm.
And it's really a fascinating ship because it has two portholes or gateways on the inside. One of them is ocular and the other is frequential, and it's for arriving and depositing ambassadors and dignitaries across the galaxy. And it showed up during a meeting with 3 of my scientist friends from SpaceX who were non-believers. And after a 2-hour conversation about beyond Earth sentience, they were all getting up to sort of say their goodbyes and hug. And then this showed up, and I pointed it out to them, and everyone started to cry.
Wow.
And these are all top physicists and PhDs who had never had this kind of experience before. That's my favorite picture.
You see
Isn't that
that?
pretty?
That is so clear.
Right. And it was a fabulous craft. You want to go ahead and show them the inside?
Yeah, let's
There you go. So
oh,
this is the
love this
inside of this
picture.
ship. These are crystal panels. They're about 25 feet tall. They weigh about 150 tons each. They're solid quartz. And right down there in the middle is a little fella who's looking back at me. There's one there, he's walking away. And then the one right there, he's like a little jellyfish guy, and he's got a reflective eye guard on, and you can see his face. He has a square face and a little tiny round mouth. And he's holding my shirt tail, and he's telling me what I can and cannot photograph on the ship.
I mean, when you had the description of these jellyfish-like beings, it lit my heart up, because it was the first time I'd ever had somebody else really be able to describe something that I thought was just like, I don't know, man. I've had the experience of seeing these beings, but it's kind of like sometimes you're like, it's too almost unbelievable to know.
Well, they have cold, wet skin that's kind of rubbery, and they're very delicate. And you really have to be a very gentle person to be in their company. And I was very happy. I took my shoes off and walked around, and he sort of guided me. He was my tour. And my special friend is also on the ship because he didn't want me to worry. And if you want to show a picture of Kim, Jim, sitting in the background somewhere.
Yeah, let
It
me
was there somewhere.
I don't know that I have them on this particular one. Let me stop share and find it so I don't have just all.
Yeah, you're good. So what they told me was that at any time, if I violate their trust, or if I try and make money off my experience, they're going to remove all the information they put in between my ears and take all the information out of my phone, and I wouldn't see them anymore.
Mm.
And there's a whole level of snake oil salespeople within the UFO community, but I'm not part of any kind of UFO community. I don't get involved in that soup kitchen, man. The only reason I went to Bob Potter's gig in Shasta was so I could meet Vivian Chauvet. You know, Vivian is such a superstar. I love her. And then I hooked up with Krista Risa and her partner, Ra, and I've known them since 2019. And they're a really cute couple.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk about my experience, because there was a lot of genuinely kind people that went to Bob's gig to go hook up and to meet each other and to, sort of feel the tribe of the vibe, but the vibe of the tribe. But I was told very carefully to be careful to always present the information in a way to people who are ready to understand it, because you can't just put it in a magazine or like Cosmopolitan. There's Kim Jim, great. And
I found the right one.
yeah, he's such a dear little soul. Can you make that bigger?
Absolutely.
There he is. All right, so you can see his little black tunic and his big white gray head and his little arm, his little left arm there. And he's sitting at a control panel, and he's behind those giant crystal panels. And he was at the back end of that ship. And so I had to walk quite a ways down that glass floor to go see him. There's a big difference between devices that record history from where they come from and your Nikon or your cell phone. They have to produce an energy field that surrounds not only you, but allows your technology to work. And I don't understand necessarily all the electromechanics behind that, but they do that so that I can take pictures. Because oftentimes, if you try and take pictures while you're near a spaceship or inside of one, your phone becomes red hot and it'll melt because it's vibrating at a lower frequency. And so the ship kills your phone because our technology isn't necessarily healthy for them. And so if you're carrying alien technology on board that's detrimental, the ship will melt your phone or it'll melt your camera. And it's really important to get it right with these species when you're on board. I've had a long relationship with Kim Jim, and they've told me that my photographs are to help people wake up and to also give people hope and clarity, because they are here for us. They will come down and meet you when you're ready. And they want you to remove all the ideas of anger, jealousy, fear, and hatred. Get rid of those 4 things.
Yeah.
And he said, if you can replace anger, jealousy, fear, and hatred with love, forgiveness, compassion, and kindness, says those are the 4 that are most important for your species. Because once you possess the value of those 4 enzymes, then you can do anything you want with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the other 4 that cripple us. And so Kim Jim's been sort of my teacher and my best friend about waking up and being a nice man and being a gentle person, because the world is full of people who think everything is a joke, or that, you know, to be a real man, you need a truck, and to go, you know, have sex with hot women and be able to go shoot deers with your gun and to pay your mortgage on time and all these other false sort of things that are used as distractions for humanity. Where Kim Jim has just told me the basic function of mankind, that man is here to support the woman, and that man is here to support the giver of life, and that our job is to move rocks, you know, build a safe home, and to make sure that everybody is just and kind to each other, but to really support women. And that women were the idea that, you know, the putting the temple in the goddess. Believe me, species from other worlds, they have relationships like we do. They have physicality, they have intimacy, they have children. All right. I mean, we've talked about physicality. Erom got naked for me and showed me her bits and how everything worked. I have no misconceptions about sex with extraterrestrials. Believe me, it's pretty fucking hot. And human beings have a long way to go. Right, with all of the societal taboos that we have about bearing our genitalia. Jesus, when they took me to Broccoli, everybody was naked, and there was thousands of different species. So get over it.
Well, and it's amazing because even within this group, you know, we really talk about the restoring of the divine feminine, the sacred sexuality, the Heros Gamos union, all of that it was such sacred creative energy. And there was such an honoring of the divine feminine. This is really the calling for so many of us, is to restore not just the honor to the divine mother energy, the divine feminine energy, but also the balance and the honoring of the place of both as a dance.
Well, correct. And that's why you have the spiral helix of your chromosome chain. One is male, one is X, and one is Y. And there's a complete dance, but it has to be male in support of female, because the male energy it's somewhat short-sighted as far as sympathy. Men are less sympathetic, men are less psychically intuitive, men are less mothering. And so those values, which are producers of life, need to be considered sacred. And so men are defenders of the sacredness of womanhood, right? Mm-hmm. A good man defends his wife's and his daughter's sacred womanhood. Yep. And it's without thinking, and it's without bragging about. Mm-hmm. You just do it. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's absolutely, and they totally are in line with the divine feminine, absolutely, because many of them are androgynous. Some of them actually need technological help to bear offspring, but many of them don't. Many of them mate normally and have children. It's a beautiful process.
Mhm.
And I couldn't believe that the children's schools and the wonderful STEM toys that they get to play with. Oh my gosh, they put me in a room for about 2 hours with their children's STEM toys. And I walked out of there and I felt like Einstein. So and they gave me patterns and they gave me all kinds of great designs for children's toys for human babies to help wake up humans.
Wow. I
Oh
have
God.
to say this is a really important topic, something that they definitely really, I feel, want us to kind of bring forward more of this honoring of the children, the sacredness of raising the children. All the frequency and vibrations just literally changed as soon as you said that. They just like,
Oh yeah, God bless the nurseries. God bless the flowers and the little animals and the babies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That energy is the most important life energy that humans provide. And it connects to Gaia better than any other form.
Mhm.
Gaia appreciates it when we fight for redwoods. Gaia, she loves us when we fight for the bear and the cougar. But she loves us even more when we bear children who love her unconditionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there another picture you'd like to show?
Yeah, actually, I would love to. Oh, gosh, sorry. They're ringing really loud right now. Let me close this, and I would actually. Can we share the beings that just recently visited you?
Yeah. Oh God, yes. Are you kidding? Okay, so everybody, these came into my house about 2.5 weeks ago. It's two of them.
And oh my gosh.
And I know that you'll be able to see their faces. They walked right up to my camera and said, "You may initiate your device."
Let me.
And they're hard to see, but just give it some time.
Yeah, give me
And there's two of
one
them.
moment.
And see, my house is full of antiques and bric-a-brac, so they love picking stuff up and looking at it.
I love that you guys all get to see me try to deal with technology.
You're doing great.
I am not. Hi, Liam. Are you joining in? Are you showing us how absolutely incredible all the little people are in the world? And here we go. Now, can you actually see the photo, or does it look little?
No, it just looks like it's your computer screen.
Okay, hold on.
With little pictures on it. So I have to tell everybody while you're finding the picture, they asked me to keep the light off because they weren't wearing their sunglasses. There we go.
Perfect.
Just leave that up for a moment. That came across really well. Okay, my room was pitch black and I couldn't use the flash on my phone. So they generated enough light from their skin in order to see them. And it was a regular exposure. It probably wasn't more than 2 seconds. This one is very sweet. The other one is a little different, so don't be scared when you see it. This is the left eye. There's the other one. That's his full face.
That's
And you can see his left eye. Becca, can you make it a little bigger?
yeah.
Okay, keep going. There.
Wow, look at that.
You can even see his pupil. Those are energy waves. His skin was rippling with energy. There's two different species here. This one is about 4.5 foot tall, and he's bending down to look at me. The first one was about 3 feet tall, and she was looking straight ahead. They left me with some that's a beautiful photo. Do you want to zoom into his eyes so you can see his
Yeah,
pupil?
look at that.
Look at his pupil. Just go further if you can. There you go. Look at that.
Wow.
Okay. So these are real, guys, and it's time. It's time for you guys to get to see the pictures, and they're starting to come down more.
Yeah.
I've been told that if you guys want to have visitors in your house, all you have to do is ask for them. This is the time. We're coming out of the old zodiac sign, and we've entered Aquarius, and there are special gifts coming to us from the center of the galaxy now that the planet has shifted its position. So if you want something from the universe, now is the time to ask everybody, hasn't she got a beautiful, pretty eye? Now, that's her little cheek below. That's her left eye. And the picture probably wouldn't have come out if they'd stood further away. Oh, yeah. Because,
I love the way you can see the light they're emanating from within.
well, this is great because you can actually see her pupil.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome. That's better than on my own camera. I don't know how you got that. Maybe it was just meant to be.
From your
Do you want to flick through the other ones to see if there's some different views?
Wow. Look at,
okay, so
the rainbow color.
Right. Okay. And so there's the proof that it was a photo. All right. That's a good one. All right. So there's a little bit different feeling in her eye, and they're speaking to me psychically. So there was no sound with it. I did hear them when they shuffled in front of me and they told me when I could initiate the button on my phone to take their picture, but they had to lean in real close. And as soon as they gave off this weird wave, then I was sort of inspired to push the button. And I think that they generated those images because my room was quite honestly pitch black.
Yeah.
And when you see pictures of sentient beings from other worlds, and it looks like they have a big glassy eye, a real dark bubble on their eye, that's not their eye. Those are sunglasses. All right. Those are big ocular sunglasses that protect them from gamma radiation. Remember, the Earth has gamma bouncing all over it. Even at nighttime, it bounces back and forth, and it's critical for them to protect their eyes, especially during the day, with these black bulbous sunglasses that they wear. So this is what their eyes look like without the sunglasses.
Yeah, and I've actually heard that and kind of intuited that as I've tapped into visiting them on their home planets, is this atmosphere here in the solar system really doesn't work well for not only their eyesight, but just even the physiology of the body. For them to actually come into your room, I feel like they kind of have to really prepare to even do those little journeys.
Well, they did. They were wearing, I think they were wearing skin tight, like wetsuits that were really thin, that were arm and leg length, and then they stopped right below their chin. So the only thing that was exposed was their hands, feet, and face.
And here we are swimming around in it, right?
Right. Well, there's a lot of subatomic sized metal particles and subatomic toxins in our air that we're used to that we can breathe. They're actually, it dries their skin out like acid, and they like to have moisture controlled ships. I can tell you, it's a little humid. That's a pretty picture.
Yeah, I love
Isn't he interesting?
I just love this one. I
So
just
much
love
so.
that you can see the variation of the colors.
Oh, it's so different than his friend. So one of the big things, and you and I talked about this, and I'll just mention this. One of the things, they left me with some downloads, you guys, and one of the things that they told me was that even though I was an ambassador through Kim Jim and the Galactic Council of Scientists to help prepare humans understand their own experience, they chose me to send those two to, because they had never met a human before. And so the ambassador training goes both ways, that I was here for them to see what humans smell like, look like, what their houses are like, what kind of little knickknacks they have, because I'm safe to be around, because they know that I won't hurt them, because they're afraid of us. People do terrible things to these little, they're frail, they're skinny, tiny little, they have, some of them have craniums like eggshell. And you just have to be really gentle around them because they're delicate. And what humans are like, they pick up their shotgun or their baseball bat and they go to town. They're afraid of us. So what we really need to do is get rid of that fear and flight response and any notion of fear, hatred, or disgust. Yeah. It's no different than seeing a beautiful animal. And so here's the humor aspect. Okay. For them to meet me the first time was really brave for them, because I know I have body odor. And for me to meet a Yeti, it's the same thing. It would be like me meeting a Bigfoot for the first time. Giant, smelly, they grunt, right? So I was like a Yeti to them, right? So it's training. So they're being trained. but
love
this is
it.
part of the group. They're all going to be working with us. We are moving forward. The planet's moving forward. Ascension is here. The planet's shifting into a higher, more wonderful frequency, a higher dimension. We are moving into paradise. They will be with us, and they will also assist us. All right. And this is all within our lifetimes. It's such a beautiful thing that's happening right now. There are thousands of visitations going on right now all over. And I'm just lucky enough to get to take pictures.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful, the gift that you are sharing, because it really amplifies our awareness and our cognizance on what being an ambassador is. To really start to go, oh, okay, when they do visit, we get to breathe, we get to remain calm, we get to step into our spiritual maturity, everything that we've been really working with and learning
Right.
to hold the love and the compassion.
Right. Listen, when they show up, you're just gonna die. You're gonna want to, you just put your arms out because they want to hug too. Okay. So when they
I'll
show
touch
up,
them.
they just want to be there. All right. They just want to be there. And it's so fun. It's fun. It's just as fun for them as it is for us. Okay. It really is an exciting thing. I mean, I can't tell you how wonderful it is. We know we're not alone. We just get past all that bullshit that they're spinning to the others, right? Let them spin that BS, because they're here to talk to us now. They're here to be with us now. And they want to support you. They want to love you. And they want to relearn what love is. They really do, because we share the terrestrial value system of being a mother, of being a loving dad, of being a loving human, a supporting human that wants everyone to have peace and happiness. We share those values with them, and they come through us in our pheromones, our chemical essence that comes off of us. And so when they come into close proximity, they breathe those things in, and it reconnects them to Gaia, and it helps them have a physical resonance with Source. You see?
It's part of the other way that we are so transparent or telepathic, is that, we do get really stuck on the mental plane here, but it's so beyond that. It's, we were even having conversations earlier about how it's beyond even language of light and images. And now you're adding in the feeling of pheromones. Like, we don't even think about, oh, I got scared and I probably put a little puff of pheromone in the air of like,
Right.
stink of fear.
Oh no, there's a whole language, there's a whole alphabet of pheromones that we don't really consider, because they're natural for us. Like, this is why the system wants you to use perfume and underarm deodorant that smells like detergent, so that, like, how is anyone ever supposed to be hot for you unless they can sniff your armpit, right? Because we're all animals, right?
Oh,
So,
man,
but
I
it's the
know.
same. It's the same language. You either go back to where you're supposed to be, and learn, right, the way we used to be, when we can. You feel that niceness when you're with somebody that you love. And listen, if there's a Mongol warrior horde coming over the mountain, you're going to smell them and run, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we get that essence from people we don't like, men in black, people who build bombs, people that work for corporations that produce plastic, right?
Mhm.
When you're in a crowd, you can suss those people out because of the bad energy. Just imagine what their pheromones smell like.
Yeah.
Right? So there's so many different communication levels that your body already has natural buffers or acceptance values, so that you will smell something and not know what you're smelling because you don't register it, but your mind already has 125 million years of history of that scent and how to deal with it. So there's a whole separate registry system. And that's why I think part of the whole understanding of what being a male is and what being a female is, and I think there's a lot of confusion about that now, because there's such a great fracture in understanding the divine feminine, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't really feel like there's a divine masculine, but I believe in the protector masculine, right? So, like, I would protect my wife and my son. I would protect your children because you're my friend. because, you know, all men are good for is making domiciles, picking up boulders and moving them and going out and getting a deer every once in a while to feed the clan. Look at the way guys have screwed everything up, right? Look at men. It's
I
scary.
do have to say that I do feel that there is a divine masculine. I actually really do. I do. I'm gonna have
That's
to
great. I
call
no,
that
listen,
one.
there's nothing I know about. Okay, I don't know anything about it.
We're holding it, man, because it is. I really feel that, even the perception of divine feminine, we're learning how to hold it. We're
Right. Well,
learning how to step
God
up.
bless us all then.
And as we learn, it's like part of it is also seeing the divine masculine as that potential to be the divine protector, the divine holder, the divine strength that moves the container of energy that is the creative life force that is the female. And so in essence, they really do create that Hieros Gamos energy that is that balance that really doesn't.
You haven't lost me. Maybe we can do some therapy and you can help me understand it better later.
You're just like, yeah, they have pitchforks. It's like, no.
No.
We're here.
So it's been a revelation that changed my life. And even though I was blessed from day one having the mother that I had and growing up with Tippi Hedren and all the other amazing people that were in my mom and her life and being with all the big animals, the elephants and the big lions.
Wow. Yeah.
My life was so special, so special and so wonderful. And I loved every minute of it. I wasn't an abusive kid. I was just soaking it all up. But you would think that that would be enough. And when I left Europe, I was in Europe for 12 years teaching wine and food chemistry and doing wine tastings. And I've traveled to 32 different countries. I've spoke to thousands of people, professionals and lay people alike, and nothing had prepared me for the experience that I had of having my soul cleansed, for having my neural net realigned, for being cerebrally enhanced, and then given thousands and thousands of pieces of information to help me understand the net of history and the web of the future. And boy, every time I go into outer space, I feel like I'm an old Greek fisherman casting a net over the sea, and the fish are experiences and the sea are the stars. And it's just such an amazing thing because I don't know when they're coming back, but they always come back. It's not like they call me up and saying, hey, you want to have a visit? It's like I'm in bed and they wake me up, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll say something, and sometimes it's for 2 minutes and sometimes it's for a day or two. But you have to understand, I'm really lucky to have the photographs because it proves to you guys that this is physical, okay? This is where we touch each other. It isn't like I had a dream that I was flying in space, even though I do get those dreams. I get dreams where I'm flying over my city and I stop by and I visit friends that are sleeping and stuff. I probably have 7 or 8 of those dreams a year. They're really great. But I know the difference between astral projection and physical contact.
Yeah.
And it's like hardcore. And I always feel better for it. In fact, what's really weird is I feel younger every time they show up. And when they leave, I've got like, I always lose like 3 or 4 pounds of fat. Some of the wrinkles go away, right? So whatever they do to me, it's like they give me back 3 or 4 years every time they show up. I think I look pretty good for 57, and I don't have money for spas. I just, I eat a lot of fruit, I eat a lot of vegetables, and I just, try and lead a good life. But every time they show up, they leave me with a gift. And it's a gift of good health. It's a gift of good feelings. And it's a gift that reminds me that no matter how hard my life is at times, because I'm like everybody else, I have a hard life, that there's always something better just around the corner. And that it's like Christmas is better than Christmas, right? Because they're waiting for us. And they also want to meet you, and they want to meet so many of your friends. Get ready, Becca, they're coming.
Yeah.
Get ready. because they want to love you and they want to show you the divine way, the way that we're all supposed to be living. And it has nothing to do with material possessions. It has nothing to do with paying a mortgage or a rent. Everything is free. And we give and share freely. Nothing is to be harbored. Nothing is to be gained. They're not interested in money because money doesn't exist for them. But they also said that there's no such thing as fear where they come from. They said that the divine creator would never produce anything in the universe that would cause you to be afraid, and that fear was a human construct, that everything in the universe is beautiful and gentle.
That is like, I almost want to highlight that one more and like have you even say that one more time. That's how powerful that statement is that you just said.
They said that the divine creator would never produce anything to cause any species or any human fear, that fear is a construct of the human imagination, and the divine creator only produces things that are wonderful and make you feel good and that are wonderful to be around. There is nothing to be afraid of.
I kind of just want to like harness that and really just kind of amplify that for all of us, because we spend so much time really rewriting all of our belief systems, all that we have been holding, all of the burden and the karma of the past. And really they're giving us a gift, almost as if Kim Jim's putting his amazing, beautiful hands on the back of our neck right now in order to have that experience of just saying, all of that that's ever created any fear, any limiting beliefs within ourselves, all of the burdens we've ever felt from any of our past childhood experiences or family energy, literally we can realize it doesn't belong to us.
Right. It's not yours. Let it go. Don't take responsibility for it. It's not yours. The only thing that's important is be here now. Yeah. Everything is in the past for a reason. And they don't travel to the past. Let me tell you guys, I've spoken to beyond Earth sentients that are powerful beings that have technology. None of them know how to time travel. And if they did, they said they never would, because it's in the past for a reason. He said the past is a magnificent place to let things go, because the most important thing is right now. Yeah. The most important thing is this moment, not tomorrow. They said you can't see tomorrow. You can hope for a nice day tomorrow, but that's it. Let everything go. Kim Jim told me that humans would all find happiness if we would let go of the concept of control. Right? You don't control what? You don't control or it's like what feeds you? I mean, how does a bad feeling make you a better person? Let it go. You don't deserve it. It's not yours. Let it go. Yeah. Let go of the past. And I know that's hard for a lot of people, but you're just going to have to do it, because there is nothing derived from clinging on to ancient pain. Nothing derived from that. The only thing that you can derive that's good is releasing it and admitting that it wasn't your fault and that you were part of the experience, but now it's time to be free from that. Yeah. Right? When we experience things collectively or individually, if we're victims, if we've been victimized, or if somebody brought us into their evil play, remember that it's not your fault, but that you were shown a very powerful experience that you must let go of. Yeah. Right? Every time something bad happens to us, we must behave like a bodhisattva and thank the experience, even though it's painful. Allow it to pass through you and be better for the experience. And it's hard. But, you know, only people that have truly suffered and come forward are able to understand that, I think. You know, you look at a lot of people that are like concentration camp victims, right? That have gone on to lead beautiful lives. Women who have been raped, who have opened up rape clinics and shelters for children and young unwed mothers. And what beautiful things that they've done with their lives instead of remaining a victim, right? Yeah. So every bad experience can be redefined into harmony and positivity. And so releasing all the bad stuff, it doesn't belong to us. And I felt pretty lucky when Kim Jim did that to me, because I was carrying around a big bag of shit, but it felt like an anvil had been lifted from my neck. And it's a blessing for me because, you know, I've had problems with my family, and I didn't like the way that things happened when I was a child, but I was given a gift to let it all go so that I could be who I'm supposed to be and realize that there was something far greater than the paradigm that we're all presented with upon birth.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful kind of even energy that they're kind of tapping me into this whole remembrance, even as you share the photographs of them, that a lot of times is as we look at it, it's light. It's like these fields of light that we're looking at. And I do want to bring in the blue again, just because that is so
Great.
beautiful. But as we look at them, this is also adding to that very same thought you're saying of transparency. We become transparent. We let these things flow through us. And part of the letting it flow through us means we aren't being bound by all of it. And so there is that evanescence of beginning to shine more of that
Right.
light.
Right. It's a real happy frequency because it comes from a good place, and the need is right, and the need is good. That transparency, that emotional freedom, the need for that is a good need. So it's almost an angelic spirit need. It's almost something from heaven. When you start to realize how strong the need is to release our own guilt and to release our own personal pain from things that didn't belong to us in the first place, yet we had taken responsibility for.
It's the biggest gift we can be to others, isn't it?
Right. It's right. That's right. That's why I always like, okay, I'm going to tell your community, all right, guys, within 30 seconds of meeting Becca, she was walking out of this room cabin where a bunch of people were sitting. I recognized her and I gave her a hug, put my head over her left shoulder and just started sobbing uncontrollably. I just started crying, you know, and it was like so nice for me. And I walked away feeling so much better. I was thinking, poor woman, you know, she doesn't even know who I am. And here I've just sobbed all over her because I'm a big idiot. So it was so nice. It was such a great connection. And it's like, oh, you're going to be my friend. I'm going to cry on you and tell you what's wrong with me. And then I'm going to be transparent, right? I'm going to be transparent. There's no holes barred.
Yeah.
Right. But I can't thank you enough because I've learned since that experience with Kim Jim, I've learned to take the responsibility for the moment, especially if it's my own behavior that needs to be worked on. Take responsibility for that. But also to let go of the responsibility of bad things too, and to share them, to release them. And I was really pissed off at a lot of the guys at that thing. I felt like there was a lot of machismo and a lot of guys trying to control the way the UFO community was looked at. And I was truly hurt emotionally as a man. I was thinking, what a bunch of jerks. You know, they're all like divining their story about what this is. Well, I tell you what, guys, there is no reality. It's a beautiful diaspora of beautiful events all before you, all happening at the same time. The past, the present, the future, all is now. There's no way to control it, so stop pretending. That's why I don't do UFO gigs. Sorry, I'll shut up. You know, it's because I just want to talk, you know.
And part of that is also an experience for attendees to learn discernment. So even us as a group, when we went, we had many talks about, you know, it's always about discernment. Anyone can be whomever they want to be, however they want to project ourselves. But in the end, it's our own filters of discernment, knowing our truth, knowing our resonance. And like you're saying, how they can read us, we can actually be in that intuitive state, feel the frequencies. Hopefully not the pheromones. I'm not sure how totally comfortable I am with that right now. I'm like, oh, no. But we have these senses, and these events, they do call a lot of other energies to come and feed off of those that are seeking, that are awakening, that are choosing. And so there is a lot of vulnerable energy. And I feel that, you know, when we do find ourselves in those environments, when we're aware, much as I knew you were and others were, we actually are the ones that fortify the field.
Right.
So we spend the time, most of the time, clearing the energy, fortifying the space.
I was like, I did my thing and I had to get out of there. I mean, I was like, whoa, that was heavy. I thought you were amazing. Of course, I still think you're amazing. And I think you're tolerant and you're patient and you're loving. And I'm so glad to have you as a friend, and for you to spend any time with me at all is always a blessing. Becca, I have always been attracted to strong, smart women. I just don't like it when people go, they have nothing to produce for society. Just like show me
Everybody
your heart
bitching.
and get on with it. And I think you're really bitching. And I think that if the world was full of wonderful women like you, we'd be in a lot better shape.
Well, you're in a whole group of us right now.
Well, God bless all of you.
A lot of
I'm
them
so
don't have
lucky to
the
have,
cameras on right now, but literally that's what we are. Is we're just an entire circle here that supports each other. We love each
that's wonderful.
other. We just are holding that energy because, again, as we learn to be the divine feminine, to have the courage to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to be powerful again, we make the space for the divine masculine to heal, because that's what it's seeking as well. And I feel that so much across the planetary cosmos is men also want that permission to be soft, to be loving, to have that safe space.
That's I guess I understand that now when you say it that way. I mean, I don't need permission to be a nice guy. And if I'm soft and I'm a nice guy and you could give me a hug, well, that's cool. I'll hug a biker or I'll hug a baby. It doesn't matter. Right? Everybody deserves a hug. Isn't it nice to get a hug?
Oh man, right?
Right?
And this is it's amazing because even as we just have so much fun with this conversation, it's just amplifying the energy of that. This is really what they're asking of us, to learn to step into this energy. Really, everything in the message that you've shared of what they kind of relayed is in a lot of ways quite simple. We like to make everything so complicated, but it's about come back into our heart, learn to have compassion, learn to have love. First of all, let go of your own shit.
Right.
Let it go. And if you can't find someone to help you do that, so that you can realize, again, that power statement that you said, that the divine, that God did not ever create fear. So anything that holds us bound in fear or restriction or limitation within ourselves, we can know without a doubt that it doesn't come from the divine.
Right. Right. Nothing of those constructs, no fear, no shame, no guilt, none of those things come from the divine creator. They're all artificial constructs.
Yeah.
And so they're not real. Actually, we've got to just release them and recognize them for what they are and let them pass away. Right? The most important thing, the most powerful energy of all was love. It always has been. They feel love. They feel it differently than we do. But we're very important, not only because we remind them of who they are, but because we're part of the general diaspora of all life in the universe. And they appreciate all life, including ours. They know that we're going through a difficult time right now, Becca, and they want to be here for us. They want us to listen to our inner voice. They want us to release the concept of control, and they want us, above all, to love one another unconditionally at all times. And this is something that we need to constantly remind ourselves to do so that we change for the better. But they're coming. There's going to be a lot more of them visiting us. And when you guys are ready, if you want them in your house, now is the time to ask. Go out and pick that place in the sky and ask them to come down, and they will come.
Oh, it's amazing. Love that. Be mindful of our vibration, know from our heart what we are asking for, what vibration we are holding, as you're sharing how important it is that that frequency will match wherever we're at. And I just have to say, David, thank you so much. This has been such an incredible and fun experience to just explore all of this together with you. With so much love. Thank you for sharing this great evening with us. Have a beautiful night, everyone.